secret for the time being, as we were asked to keep it on the DL. It is what it is. But it's a very interesting and developing story. But the news that has broke is that Brandon Unger is returning back to the squad. Mike Hinman is taking back control of the team. If you haven't listened to Play the Game podcast with Mike, he breaks it all down there. I just got off a long phone call with Mike Hinman. They do have the pro spot. So that has been decided. That was kind of up in the air as of the conversation he had with Marcelo and Tyler. But yeah, that's the case. And we're just going to kind of jump into it here. But do mark your calendars as the January 16th to the 17th. We got the pro exhibition coming at you from Florida. Congratulations to Chad Bouget on winning the Ultimate Shootout. We'll have more of those coming at you as well, too. Hopefully 2021 is going to be a badass year. Thank God 2020 is almost done. Without any further ado, Brandon, how you doing, man?
Doing really well, man. Thanks again for having me on. I love talking to you. I love seeing everybody. So, man, I'm just excited to get this next season rolling. I don't know about you guys, but I've been itching. These 2 tournament seasons, I can't do it, man. I need some more.
Yeah, this was completely unprecedented. We have never been in this situation before. Obviously, the world hasn't really been in this situation before, at least in modern memory, with the COVID bullshit. But it is what it is. We were talking about that kind of offline, how we just kind of have to struggle through and make the best of it. I know you've been doing that with your training in Arizona. So we got a little bit to talk about today. We got a decent amount to talk about. One, I do want to talk about the Thunder program. That's the program you're leaving. We obviously have to talk about the evolving story that is San Diego Aftermath, because I think this is going to be a really cool story. Mike is pumped. He's back in it for sure. And anytime you have a motivated Mike Hinman in the mix in the pro division, things are going to get interesting. And and this is, like I said, going to be a developing story. They went after some players. They got those guys. We've been asked politely to hold those names. So everyone's just going to have to wait in the pocket for the next couple of days as they're announced. But Mike's got big plans for Aftermath. But he also, and he said this on, Marcelo and Tyler's show, and he said it again when I talked to him. He's like, look, I'm humbled coming into this pro division. He's like, Matty, you and I know that it's never been as competitive as it is now. So I know it's going to be very difficult, but I just don't want to take last place. That's step 0. That's just out the gate. Don't want to take last place. But he is very motivated to build a winning team. And so this was the quote, though, he said about you. I was like, let me get a quote on Unger. And he said, I'm glad to have him back. I feel like, Brandon's truly a franchise level guy, but we still have some work to do with them. You know what I'm saying? And so he definitely believes in you, or he wouldn't, have picked you up. So let's just dive into that right away. I do want to, again, I'm a big fan of Seattle Thunder, so it's obviously hit to them. Corey, though, has a ways of picking up talented guys to making his team competitive. So I'm not really too worried. But yeah, man. So let's just start there. Why the move back to Aftermath? How did this begin for you?
Oh man. So with this, with this shitty season that we had, it was really tough because I really wanted to give obviously my all to the team. Every season I'm always going to do that. That's the commitment as you make as a paintball player, especially as a professional paintball player. You are 100% in the game when you're at practice, when you're traveling, when you're at tournaments, whatever the case is. So it really hurt to, make a decision to leave because I really didn't feel like I was able to give my all to the team. I know there's things out of our control. We weren't able to have all the tournaments. But ultimately, it really just came down to me wanting a little bit more in terms of, coaching wise, more feedback essentially. As you know, and I'm sure a lot of other people know, Mike is never shy to give his opinion, and that's what I really love about him, and that's what I really want. I kind of miss the being told everything you did wrong every single point, every single time you stepped on the field, and I kind of didn't necessarily get that when I was with Thunder, and that's no harm on them. I mean, that's a lot of on me because I didn't introspectively go back and think about, oh wow, I made this mistake, could have done this differently, could have done that differently, and that's on me, and I own that. I just would want, and I do want, and I'm going to be able to receive a little bit more communication on terms of things, what I need to do better, and how I can achieve my goals. You know what I mean?
I got a couple questions for you, but let's start with this. What are your goals? I mean, what do you want out of this journey? We've touched base with you before. You definitely got a little paintball famous in a couple different routes because, everyone speaks very highly of you, Brandon. Everyone's like, Brandon's such a good dude. I mean, even guys like Nicky Vegas, who had just met you and you played 10-man with him. You also won your first 10-man tournament, you son of a bitch, as that is so hard to do. Very first 10-man he ever plays, he takes a victory. And what a crazy victory that was, because you were driving back to the airport when you got the call that you had won the tournament. So you guys, I think, missed your flights to drive back to celebrate with the team in Chicago, which was a great story. But anyway, I'm bringing that up because after that event, I'm old roommates with Nicky Vegas and we were old teammates. And I was like, what do you think about Brandon Unger? And he's like, dude, Brandon Unger is a real deal. Big fan of Brandon. He's a good guy. So everyone believes in your paintball talent and what you can achieve. And everyone says you're a good enough dude to take the criticism you need to take to be the best you. So then I got to ask you, what do you want out of this? Like, what do you want? I mean, how far do you want to take this?
Man, I think my goal ever since I was a little kid, getting into paintball, was to travel. I mean, that was always a big goal. Other goals have developed now that I'm kind of in the scene. I'm learning a lot more, getting a better idea of what kind of person I want to be. I'm still growing up, I'm still young, and I still have aspirations outside of paintball as well. But in terms of like paintball specific goals, honestly, right now it's being more consistent and being more consistently at the top. There's a lot of times and a lot of situations in the past 2 seasons with Thunder where I dropped the ball in different points, different matches, different situations. I mean, I remember very vividly every situation where I missed a snapshot, or I missed when I'm going down the field, I miss a shot when I'm running and gunning. And these different situations where I know in the grand scheme of things, they might not have seemed very big, probably seemed pretty minuscule when I was explaining these different things to my teammates and to friends. But in the moment and in the tournaments, by me hitting those shots and by me making the correct moves, they would have changed the outcome of the point, which could have directly changed the outcome of the match, which could have directly, influenced how well we did in the tournament. Me making a shot could have been the difference for us going on to Sunday. It's really just plain as that. Paintball is a game of like millimeters. Let's be honest. It's not a game of feet or inches. The smallest mistakes will cost you. So right now, my goal in paintball is to become more consistent, and I know Hinman's going to be able to help me do that.
Let's talk about temperament a little bit and the type of mentality needed to be elite, because I see your physical skills and, I can totally see it from your perspective, how, you're looking at a missed snapshot there, a run through there where you could have made your shot. And those are trainable things. Those are things that, as anyone that hasn't played paintball for a while, like anytime I go out and play, on my shitty ass old body, I start to, the mind, it's like, I remember talking to Bob Long about this back in the day when I was young and physically super able. And he would be like, sometimes, man, I see a move and then I forget that I'm 45 or 55 at the time or whatever he was. And I try to make that move and I get obliterated. So I think physically, I mean, you keep yourself in great shape. I feel, and the snapshot's the first thing to go, and situational awareness is trainable. And these are all things that can, with a lot, this is when I was talking to Mike, he's like, man, I want guys that are very close to California or very willing to fly in on a regular basis or willing to grind, because you have to be willing to go into the breach a ton of times. You have to be willing to, that we used to call it the grind. And like, you got to grind to shine. That used to be one of the cliches we used to say all the time. But talking about temperament, honestly, Brandon, I don't think you're missing snapshots. I mean, I know you are. We all are. Everyone does when you go play. But I don't really think that. To me, it's like you're such a level-headed and chill dude. I feel like I want you to get a little bit bigger chip on your shoulder and realize how good you are. I feel like that could propel you to greatness. If I was coaching you, that's what I would try. That's what I would want to see. More fire out of you. More willingness to push an issue. I feel like when you look at guys like Oliver, guys like Mouse, guys like Ryan Greenspan, who just won the MVP, those dudes carry a giant chip on the shoulder when they enter the field. I mean, you talk to, I mean, and again, I could spend an hour talking about the greats and how chill they are off the field, but how murderous and beastly and demonic they are once they enter those nets. Like, that's what I want out of you. I would hope you take that mentality to 2021 and become more of the beast that I see occasionally when you're playing your best paintball. and less second guessing of your abilities, of that, innate ability. The reason, you've been on some good teams and you have a lot of good people saying good things about you, but what do you think about that? Do you think that's something that, you could work on? Or, I kind of want to talk about that because I feel like that's something that
spot on.
a lot of people are struggling with. I struggled with that when I was a player, I don't know. So let's go back and forth on this because I feel like this is crucial, man. This is so important. If you're an up and coming front player, particularly 2s, 3s, a little bit different story there. It requires a lot of cerebral thinking. You're playing, again, like say playing Go, not even chess. But that one, you got to affix bayonets and sometimes just go murder people out there. Let's talk about that. Do you feel you need more of that in your game?
Oh, Matty, 100%, man. I'm really glad you brought that up. I want to use Mouse and Spica, Kyle Spica, as my examples. When I was playing with Thunder, one of our World Cup practices, I think it was our first weekend practice, we went out to Sacramento and we played Impact. So I got to play against Mouse and I got to play against Spica. I take a lot out and I learn a lot from watching Impact every time I watch them. Shoot, I can remember back in 2015, I think it was 2016, Dallas, I went to go pit for them, and just seeing how calm their pit was just kind of mind-blowing to me. So that was a little side note, but I like to pick up different things from key players, especially like Mouse and Spica. They're the top dogs in my position, and I'm always trying to learn from them. And one of the things I really picked up from them in that specific practice was their temperament. It's literally like as soon as they walk on the field, there's a flip of the switch. The mentality switches, and it's the mentality is now kill, right? Go down, eliminate, fix bayonets, like you said, and go down and murder people. And I noticed that there's like a passion that I can kind of see in their game while I'm watching them play every single game, even if it's just practice. And I feel like I miss that and I lack that. I definitely feel like I lack that in practices that aren't tournament practices. When we're just kind of just going through drilling, doing different things, and then leading up to the tournament, I feel like I get a little bit more, but I still definitely lack that in a tournament situation. And I feel like that would be something that would be really helpful to me and to my game if I can really figure out how I can fine tune it and utilize that to my advantage, and not just when I want to, but every single time I step on the field.
I feel like the thing that, and this is it's weird with front guys. A lot of times you'll have a front guy who he has that cocky attitude in spades, and hyper aggressive, but they don't know when to tune it back. Let's take a Peyton Tabata from the Ironman, for instance. Silos, when he first came onto the scene, this is a very common thing, but it's almost like two opposite camps when you pick up front guys. So a lot of times you'll have this hyper aggressive front guy who has no problem putting a guy in, making a move, and bunkering out his mirror, like I said, affixing bayonets and playing hyper aggressive, really putting the threat. But the problem for those guys is they get shot constantly in dumb positions. They're putting themselves in very reckless positions. They get super greedy, thinking they're going to win the game constantly by themselves. And then they really put their team in a bad spot after being in a good spot. And that's a big problem. And that takes sometimes guys never get that. And then you have another situation where you have these really cerebral, smart front players that are almost like they're thinking like a 2 or a 3 as a front player, but they're letting all the variables get in the way of them making the move that they need to make, even though you'll see them occasionally. Like I'll see you flinch on a move sometimes and go, oh man, I really wish Brandon had just made that move, instead of being overly cautious. But it's tough because that's, again, I think the reason why as a teammate, people have spoken so highly of you is because no one ever needs to worry about you. You're not doing dumb shit in the parking lot. You're fun to hang out with. You're super chill, but you're not like being the reckless asshole that we all have to worry about going to jail on the weekend that we're together in some random place. Like, that's not you, right? Whereas occasionally, like, that's totally the front guy in the snake. He's the reckless asshole that we all have to keep tabs on and worry about, whatever it may be. That's definitely not you, but then this is why I think that, as a discussion for all paintball players in that situation, they kind of fall in both that areas. Now we've had tons of guys on and we've had it that fall in the too aggressive. But I really feel that you're on the opposite end of that. You are the cerebral chess player front guy, but I feel like that's why people see such a high ceiling in you, because when you have a guy that can put the variables together the way you can, if you're aggressive enough to make the correct moves when you need to make them, to stab the guy when you need to stab and trade your body and just let it flow, and then sometimes to stay alive in that spot, or the guy to methodically push up, obviously completely contingent on what that side of the field looks like and how you should be playing it. But I feel like, again, having this conversation with you is so crucial. And I feel like the success of Aftermath, if you are going to be the one in the snake, I also feel like as your career develops, you're going to be a stellar two. You know, that guy that does be able to clean up the madness, but it just depends. But I am also a believer in your talent, because I've seen you do enough cool stuff out there. You don't die early a lot, but occasionally you will hesitate. So what drills do you think, as a guy that's very much about like, okay, I have a deficiency in my body, and then this is literally your profession, is that you have people pay you to have them to come and be like, oh, well, I'm not good at this, dude. Make me better at agility, make me stronger, make me lose weight, and this is, you tailor make that. So if you could flip that up and coach yourself, if you could tailor make drills or instances to put yourself into to try to build that, the accepting of those aggressive windows that open, what do you think that would be?
In terms of like paintball specific drills, pardon me.
Yeah,
it's going to be
for
one
sure.
on
Paintball
twos,
specific
2 on
drills.
3s. It's going to be down body situations where it forces you to be aggressive. When you're up bodies, you're able to be more cerebral. You're able to figure out the situation. You're able to place certain people in certain positions to cover zones, to do different things. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love doing that. That's why I like playing rec ball so much, because I play with people who don't know how to play. You get to kind of direct traffic. But for me personally, to get and to learn how to be more aggressive, let's be honest, to get that temperament, like the Mouses and the Spiccas have, I think 1-on-2s might be my best route. Please give me your feedback, though. I'd love to hear what you think.
What I think, look, and this is why I think it's a really good, like, again, I love Corey Hall, but I'm sorry, I love Corey Hall too, but Corey Field, I think, is a great coach. But Corey wasn't able to be there constantly every single day through, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the instances you're playing with Thunder, Corey wasn't always there beating your brains in, and he plays still too, so, but exactly. Corey Field can be ruthless. He does come from the old school, and he can be very ruthless, but which you need. Again, we talk about this constantly. It's so true. If you're going to be a coach, especially a paintball coach, you have to be a little bit ruthless. You have to be honest with your guys and what their deficiencies are. And it's not a knock against them as a human or even as a player sometimes. You just are trying to elevate that paintball soul to be the best they possibly could be, to fulfill that potential. Himmon's not going to pick you up if he thinks that you're going to ride the bench, or if he thinks that you're not somebody that's going to continue to improve, or you're not going to make Aftermath a contender in some way, shape, or form. Now, that being said, I think it's going to be really good for you to have a Hinman in your ear as an attacker on the snake side, seeing what he's done with the great attackers in the past and having them fulfill their potential. And he even said, look, man, Marcelo, Mouse, these guys I've had on the team, like, that's them. I just opened up a door and helped them walk through it. Now, I got to give Mike a little bit more credit than that, because I've seen Hinman verbally abuse people to the point where they're going to get better or they're going to quit. And that point, that testing, when you've been on the team, so it's like getting to that point. Once you accept, hey, I'm going to come on Aftermath, what you're in for. You're going to have that type of coach. Mm-hmm. And now historically, we've seen very successful coaches over the years be that type of coach. And I think that's what you need, because what I would be doing is I would probably actually be putting you in situations where, if we're going to do a 1-on-2, I want you to be the 2. I want you to be on the numerically superior side, so that you can actually feel like, okay, I don't need to put the variables together. I just need to make this aggressive move. So the pressure is off of you, and you can start making those moves enough times. I really feel that if you put yourself in those situations enough in the numerical superiority side, then that way you have zero defense. Like, I want you to go out there in those situational awareness drills, high bodies, and feel zero defense in your brain. And just work through the offensive possibilities. Work through the guns. Now, ideally, it would be in a 4-on-5 situation. You're in a 5, you're on the 5, and you're in the 4. Now, that being said, you can either initiate that by having 4 on one side and 5 on the other, and what move you have to make. And not only that, your opponents or teammates know what move you have to make, so they know how to try to keep you out of that move, and now you have to work around that. Okay. Because that's going to be deep in the tournament. Once you get deep in the tournament on Sunday, every single time when you get to the finals, the moves are going to be, everyone's going to know the move, man. Everyone's going to know the 3 or 4 different routes you can take to get to the snake. Everyone's going to know what, the 50, what's possible from there. And everyone that's worth a shit, that's how they got to the finals. But that's the difference between them and everybody else, is they were able to execute and those guys couldn't. Those front players could play aggressive and get to their spots, or play whatever, smart aggression, however you want to call it. So that's what I would do with you if I was your coach and we were running drills. And then I would be ruthless to you in those moments that you did not do those things you need to do. Because, Brandon, everyone believes in your ability at this point in time, or you wouldn't continue to get these opportunities. Like, everyone knows that you already are a great player, but you could be elite. Like you said, the Spickas, the Billy Bernaccias, the Goldmans, you could be that guy. It's and that's kind of always the conversation though with the ones on the snake side. But anyway, we could have the tactic. We probably should get you on a tactics episode and break down some snake stuff, and probably just maybe do a tactics and break down multiple different snake moves. We are going to be having a Greenspan tactics episode.
I'd love to.
We've had some technical issues. It's going to be coming. But anyway, but that would be cool to kind of break down the different, seeing what Mouse does when he does it really well. What Billy does when he does it really well. Again, all the elite ones in this sport on the snake side of the field, and what is working for them. And then even when they have a bad day, where are they getting trapped? Why are they getting trapped? What is that situation? So let's talk a little bit more. So how did this work? Did Mike hit you up? Did you hit Mike? Like, how did this go down? Because we didn't really know if Mike was going to take the team back over. And again, this is an emerging story. I think we're going to have him on the show too at some point, once the dust is settled with a couple of these pickups he's about to make moves on. But anyway, so let's kind of talk about that, and then I want to talk about Thunder too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, man, I've been friends with Mike ever since we met a few years ago. I actually help out him and Jerry run the WCPPL tournaments, so the West Coast Paintball Player League. For those who don't know, I fly out on I'll usually fly out on Tuesdays with Jerry, and then we'll go set up the fields Wednesday, Thursday. We'll set up everything. So I'm there, spending a week with Hinge and spending a week with Jerry. So I'm in constant contact with them. Always just talking to them, having a good time. So it came up the last WCPPL we were at. We were just talking shop. What are you gonna do this season or next season? Hinge was telling me about the aftermath thing, what his plans were, trying to, get the team back and things like that. And things just kind of transpired. We have a good relationship. We've always had a good relationship. So I think things just kind of naturally fell into place. I've explained to him in the past just like I told you about coaching wise, I need somebody in my ear telling me everything I do wrong, because that's how I'm going to learn the fastest. I can always just go back and try to think on my own, but we forget things after a long day of paintball. So having someone in your ear all the time, I think is going to be the best for me personally. Like you said, I know he's willing to do that for me. So, with that, our history and everything, it kind of just came together, honestly, not too long ago. And then he hit me up. Him and Jerry have been talking to me a little bit after the WC, and we started talking a little bit more. And then eventually, made me an offer. I'm like, let's go. Let's run it.
It's kind of cool too, because, I remember you were fighting for playing time on Aftermath when you were first kind of coming up, and then then the team earned its right to go pro, and then went pro. You go to Thunder, and then, well, then maybe this is a good time to kind of talk about Thunder a little bit. Let's reflect on your time on Thunder. Thunder was a team that had made a few Sundays here, kind of constantly always on the edge, giving good teams, good games. That was like Thunder's story. But you were one of the guys that Corey Field, the owner and basically the prime mover of Thunder, had brought on, along with some other guys, which we can discuss, to kind of complement the core of the map chims with himself. And then he was constantly threading these newer guys out there, and whoever could show up to commit. But I always was a fan of the squad, because you guys made it interesting, and you guys were obviously super awesome dudes off the field. I've known Map and Corey for a long time, so I always wish them well. But you were one of the guys that was brought onto the team to kind of cement that snake side. Let's reflect back. How do you feel your Seattle Thunder tenure went?
I feel like my tenure could have been better. That's just on me. personally. There's, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of times I dropped the ball. I could have stepped up in leadership roles and helped out in certain situations a lot more. Besides that, other than that, I thought it went pretty well. I learned so much from Corey and from Map, dude. I know exactly how Map is, and he's helped me through so many times and just giving me just life advice, man. He is just the best. He's always having a good time, and I love that dude. Love all the dudes on the team. I've had heart-to-heart connections with all the guys there, and they've all helped me through different situations and different places in my life. So always be grateful and always appreciate them for that. Playing wise, I felt like I was able to kind of help some of our other guys, like GJ. He's one of my boys. I mean, they're all my boys. Don't get me wrong, but being able to work off of each other and being constructive and giving each other constructive criticism every practice, and we're able to just kind of grind and push things off each other, bounce things off of each other, really learn together. And I felt like we were very we learned so much. Of course, you don't lose, you learn, and yeah, man, I felt like overall it was a good tenure.
Well, let me prompt you with a couple of things, because again, Thunder, as of the beginning of this season, which ended up becoming a shit show, to be honest, unfortunately, unless you're an Ironman fan for the beginning of the year, and then a Dynasty fan at the end of the year, which was cool. I mean, though, in and of itself, that was two interesting stories, but that's that story for a different day. But looking at Thunder coming in 11th place overall, your first year on the team. So you come over from San Diego Aftermath, where you really, wanted to be that go-to guy, weren't that guy necessarily, and then you were the go-to guy then, here or there, but really did solidify yourself as the guy on the snake side. I mean, again, it's a different story every single point, different story every single tournament. But I kind of want to talk about a frustrating year for you guys, because this is one of those situations where, I'll just read off your results. 9th place at the very first event, 3 11th place finishes in a row, which means, for to the uninitiated, that means that you were literally on the edge of making Sunday every single time and just couldn't get that next point, that next game. Again, every single tournament's its own story. And then a disappointing 14th place at World Cup. This is, again, not this season, but the season before. But that was your first season on Thunder. That's a really frustrating year. But like you said, you never lose, you learn, as long as you have the right mentality. That's another sports cliche, but it is very true. And I feel, because you are still a really young guy, you're a personal trainer, you'll be keeping yourself in shape, that type of a year really could propel you to, really evolving to be the best player you can. But let's talk about a frustrating year like that. You make Sunday right out the gate, you take a 9th place, which means you lost in the wild card round. Then you head in and go 11th, 11th, 11th. How frustrating is that?
Oh my, Matty! I remember every tournament sitting in the stands, looking at the scoreboard. All right, this needs to happen for this to happen, for this to happen for us to get in. And every tournament, it was just like the same story. Oh, we can't let other teams, dictate our, how far we go into the tournament and dictate our success. It was super frustrating, super frustrating. And like you just mentioned, most of those games, 1 point, 2 point games. Lose a match here, lose a match there, and you get kicked out of the tournament. There's a lot of little mistakes that ended up transpiring, which caused us to, eventually not make Sunday. Coming to my very first pro tournament, my first goal, was just win 1 point. We win a point. All right, cool. Next time, the next goal is to win a match. Great, we hit that. Next match, or next goal, I should say, make Sunday. Great, we did it. And after that, it's just going to progress to get better. 8th place, 4th place, top 3, so on and so forth. So getting 9th place, I was super bummed, but I was very fired up to get back out for the next tournament and going into Dallas that year. Really striving to hit that 8th place. Sure enough, 11th place, next tournament, and it's on repeat. You know what I mean? So I've still yet to hit my 8th place goal. Making it into a tournament of an XL at least. So that's still one of my goals to do. We got to take it one step at a time. Damn, that was frustrating.
I feel like that's the definition of frustrating is kind of, we've had some AC Dallas players on, former AC Dallas players on recently talking about taking second places. And I've said, it's kind of paintball history, but we took 5 second places in a row the first year we formed Excessive. So that's the definition of frustration. But also, and we have Bo Milo from New York Extreme on, to come on and add some color to the broadcast occasionally, because he's one of the mouthpieces amongst many on New York Extreme, a very entertaining team. But he's another guy on another team that just is constantly taking 11th place, 10th place. They're always kind of on that edge of being a Sunday team, and it's just so frustrating because if you take a second place, okay, that sucks in its own right, because there are mistakes here or there within the framework of that last game that you could say, oh, if this went different, then that would have changed the momentum. Maybe we get the win. But when you're looking at an 11th place finish, that means there's 2 solid games, 4 games really, but you won 2 of them. But maybe the point spread could have been a little bit different. But it's just one of those situations where it's like, just a super frustrating situation, because so many things could have gone different in order to make it, where you actually move on, like you did in the first one. So it would have been a different situation if you had gone 14th and then 11th, 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 and then 9th. Instead, it's 9th and then 11th, 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 and then 14th, which is not the way you want it to go. But that's the story for not just you guys in the pro division, but for a lot of teams in a lot of different divisions. And being able to to take those hits is like the famous Rocky Balboa quote. It's not how many times you can get hit, it's how many times you can get hit and keep coming. And that's paintball, man, because you see some of these guys, like look at Ryan Greenspan. Ryan Greenspan just had the best performance he's ever had. Now, he's obviously had a historic paintball career and won a ton of tournaments. So I'm not, pleading some sob story for like poor Ryan Greenspan, who'd sucked forever and now he's great. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that you reach these pinnacles, these peaks, and to everyone, the peaks and pinnacles are slightly different. And then, then sometimes you have to suffer through the doldrums where there's no wind at your back. You're fighting an uphill battle. Again, pick your sports cliche. But then you have that bright shining moment where everything kind of clicks and you really do live like it is like one of those dreams you wake up from, like, oh, I just won the World Cup in that dream. That was awesome. And then I was the MVP. Right. Do you ever, speaking of which, I still to this day have reoccurring nightmares where like none of my stuff's working and I've got it. And like Bob Long has come to me and be like, here's your chance to play for the Ironman. You got to, you got to get to the field though. And then like, I can't find my gun. It's missing. And then when I do find it, it's not working. Do you ever have those dreams, or is that just me?
I think that might just be you, Matty. I mean, I have dreams, but it's usually of not from equipment. It's
recurring nightmare.
That's never good. Waking up.
No. Okay, so let's talk about it's definitely just me and then terrible nightmares. Anyway, so let's talk about the Aftermath story currently developing. So you're working with Mike a little bit on the tournament series. He's like, here's what we're gonna do. You're like, that sounds awesome. Again, there are going to be some player moves coming up here pretty soon. And Mike does have a longer term view of what he's trying to accomplish here. What did he say to you as far as that is concerned? The long-term view on the team.
So long-term view, he's not interested in, and we're not interested in just creating a one team, right? We want to create an academy. An academy where players can come in and they can truly grind and they can really, put metal to stone and put the work in. And if you want to get better, if you truly want to get better at the sport and become a better player, then, you'd be welcome. But it's, people are going to weed themselves out. Mike has always told me too, he hates cutting people. They cut themselves, so in terms of like long-term, I know we want to make this something that's lasting. So obviously we'll have our pro team. We should be having a lower division team that we can also grind with. As far as that, who knows what's in store, if there's going to be more teams or not. I mean, running one paintball team is stressful enough, but 2, that's pretty stressful. So I can imagine 3 or 4. I mean, the team I coach here in Phoenix, Arizona, Phoenix Rising, should we have 7 lines that go to tournaments? So it can get pretty dang hectic. But man, at the top level in the NXL. So I mean, that's a lot of work to do and a lot of commitment. So again, long-term wise, I think it's just going to be a really great academy where players can come and truly learn. I think, Mike's history speaks for itself.
Well, and just to repeat for anyone that doesn't know who Mike Hinman is, if you did just kind of start checking out paintball at its highest level, Mike Hinman has been around and been highly competent. I knew Mike. Mike is a San Diego kid, man. He grew up down here, and I remember going to play at a field up in Alpine when he was working at the local liquor store, and he was like, yo, hey, come by and say what's up. He went and played with us, and I was like, who is this 15-year-old badass kid? His dad was a machinist and a biker. Like, Mike Hinman comes from the old school of the old school. And a lot of people look at California and Southern California as like all palm trees and beaches. That's not the Southern California that Mike's from. He loves him some beach and some palm trees, but like there's a lot of hardcore human beings that live out in this area of the world, and Mike Hinman is one of those guys. And so he was on Dynasty and played for some top teams, but then he decided to start Aftermath because the name coming from the aftermath of him leaving those other camps and Aftershock, but then he really started working with some younger guys and bringing the best out of them, and that's really where he started to shine. And now, as a guy that makes paintballs for a living, that's a cool story too. But he's always loved the game of paintball. Again, from back when he was 15 years old and we're going playing rec ball in the woods up in the mountains of San Diego. Like, that's still Mike Hinman, man. He loves the game of paintball, but he also loves the camaraderie and, like you said, putting metal to stone to sharpen human lives, and not just human games, not just you getting to be a better paintball player, but you becoming a better human being. So I'm a big fan of Mike Hinman, and I do think that, and that's what I told him today. We had a pretty long conversation, and I said, man, I'm really stoked that you're back in it and motivated, because he did have to step away to work on, his business side of things. I remember when he did take a step back, but he's also a dude that, this is a guy that, depending on where Aftermath is in its arc of trying to become relevant as a pro team, he's a paintball patron too. It's another guy that's going to enable guys to live their paintball dream. And you have to respect that if you love this game, because you need those people to flush out a pro division. So we have one of those guys back. He does seem super motivated, and I think it would definitely be in your guys' best interest to have a lower ranked divisional squad, or maybe a couple of them if things work out. But somebody's going to have to manage all those guys. That's why I was going to ask you, Brandon, is that something you're interested in doing? I know you're already coaching guys. I think because you have that cerebral mind, I think one day you're going to make a great coach. You already do coach divisional guys. So before I let you go, we do have to talk about that a little bit. So you're training bodies and you're training minds here. Let's talk about that, because I feel like if I'm Mike Hinman, Brandon Unger would be one of the dudes. I'm like, well, we got to have somebody help guide the ship here. He's obviously, again, not somebody I have to worry about riding us into the rocks by being, a crazy asshole. So, I know he's going to be the guy I can give the helm to for a little bit and steer us away from the rocks and into the calm water. So is that something you'd be interested kind of moving forward to kind of help Aftermath bulk out and be one of the people leading the charge for him?
Shoot, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that was an opportunity to pursue, I love helping people just in general, especially on the fitness side, of course, but especially with paintball. I love seeing that light bulb go off in their head, and I love seeing somebody be able to understand and take a concept and then apply it to their game and apply it to their life. So, coaching is something I'm very passionate about. It's the reason why I do it. I mean, like I said, I coach and manage 7 lines out here, with the help of Corey Field, who's also, one of our coaches too. And, it's a lot of work, but to me, it's extremely rewarding. So if that was something that were to ever pop up, count me in. I'm the first one to sign up. Let's get it.
I do have to ask though, how did that call go? Because you are so close to Corey, like, how did that call go when you're like, hey man, I'm going to go back to Aftermath. I'm sorry.
Man, I'm an anxious person already, and that did not make me feel good, man. I had to take some CBD before I called him. I was like freaking out. Like, man, it was not good. I'm not that kind of person. So like, dude, I was nervous. It took a lot to build up to that.
Was that something you thought about for a couple of days too? Like, I have to make this phone call, but I don't want to make this phone call, so I'm going to do it No, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow. I need to think about what I'm going to say a little bit more, and then I'll call him tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes around, you're like, I don't have my talk track down yet. I really feel like I need to give it one more day, and then that day comes in.
I need to write a script down. I need to write something down.
Yeah, I need to write
that was
script
definitely
down.
me the day before.
I love you so much. Sure. Yeah, for sure. Because Corey it's also like a guy you don't want to let down, right? A guy that he believed in you.
Mm-hmm.
He had brought you on believing in you. Like, hey, you weren't starting on Aftermath before, but you could start for my team, and I believe in your talent. Let's go, dude. And then, like I said, humbling, frustrating year, but a year where Thunder went from being on the bottom to be getting, like, that's another thing I forgot to mention, is that the core, Corey had hit me up beginning of that year. He's like, I'm completely reforming my team. I cut a bunch of dudes. I'm bringing some new guys on, and we are not going to be bottom of the barrel anymore. And sure enough, they went from worrying about getting relegated, actually getting relegated, and then the bulking the squad out saved them from going down to semi-pro. But then you guys started to, make the Sunday, almost make the Sunday. So it's, anyway, like I said, just a frustrating call, man. So I know that must have sucked for you, but I do think that moving on to Aftermath is going to be pretty interesting, and a good story for you. I think Aftermath is a developing, awesome story. Again, more of that story is going to go down. But before we sign off, anything you want to talk about? Anybody you want to thank? We obviously, you, like I said, you're training paintball minds and coaching, but you're also training bodies too. Where can people hit you up? And then the last thing I did want to throw at you, and I kind of throw this at every guy that is a personal trainer that we have on the show. We happen to be heading up to New Year's. It's the 30th right now. We got New Year's Eve tomorrow, and then the start of New Year. This is when everyone's like, oh, I'm going to be jacked in 2021. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to get faster. I'm going to not do this. I'm going to do that. So seeing as how I have a personal trainer on the show here, the last show we're probably going to do before we get to the new year, I got to ask you if you could give, one bit of advice to everyone getting back in the gym, or maybe like, one training session, or one set of, things for people to work on. I gotta ask you for that. Give everyone a freebie a little bit here,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, first I just want to say thank you for having me on. Shout out to you, and thank you, Darren. He's also part of Go Sports. For anybody who doesn't know, he's the man who helps run everything. He's awesome. So I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on here and talk to you guys. And just want to give a big shout out, of course, to my parents. They're always supporting me, helping me get advice, giving me advice, leading me in the right direction. And of course, to my boys on Thunder. I love those guys. Always be grateful for them and the time I spent with them. So in terms of, personal training wise, or just coaching in general, if anyone's ever interested, learn more about me, learn more about what I can do, please hit me up on Instagram at @the_Unger_games77. That's the Unger Games. Or you can hit me up on Facebook, Brandon Unger on there. Man, quick little tidbit. Whatever you do, just remember, whatever you do now might not show up and you might not see results now, but in 30, 60, 90 days from now, you're going to start to see everything start to pay off. So what you do today, you might not see the change, right? You might not see the skill. You might not see the change on the scale. You might not see the change in the mirror, but continue to make steps forward and continue to make steps in the right direction. As small as those steps are, everyone has to start somewhere. When I go hiking, one of my things I always tell myself, it doesn't matter how slow I go. It doesn't matter how small of a step I take. What matters is you just don't stop. So if you truly have goals you want to achieve, and it's honestly, if it's something that you really want, find your why and then go out and attack your goals.
I love that you used the hiking metaphor, because as somebody that loves backpacking, dude, backpacking is a son of a bitch, man. It's such a gut check to put a bunch of weight on your back and go into the mountains at elevation where you can't really breathe that much oxygen, and then do 8 miles over 2 peaks like that. You want to you want to go get a good workout, go do some HIIT training in the park, go run at sea level, or unless you live in Denver. Yeah, go do that. That's not much of a gut check. That's just a good exercise. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not like a life affirming moment where you think you're going to die. But if you really, really, really want to have a gnarly gut check moment, go spend 8 hours with 40 pounds on your back at 10,000 feet, hiking over 12,000 peaks, 12,000 foot peaks, and do that for a long period of time. I love backpacking, and I always tell motivated people, I'm like, look, man, anytime that it's I feel like, some people get super motivated about their keto diet or paintball, people get super sold on paintball. Like, oh, you got to go play paintball or jujitsu. I feel like I try to be a prophet for backpacking because it's just such a crazy experience that you really don't know like what it's really like until you're in that moment where you're looking at that beautiful, gorgeous vista, but you've spent 8 hours getting there and you still have 3 more hours to go before you have to go suffer by an alpine lake it's 38 degrees outside and you can't even have a fire. And people were like, why would you do that? I'm like, I can't explain it, man. You just feel so alive once you're there. It's like paintball. Until people play paintball, sometimes they're like, that doesn't seem like any fun at all, man. Like you have 50 welts on you. You know, you're getting shot at by all these different people. Like that doesn't seem like a good time. I'm like, well, let me bring you. We'll go do it. And I promise you, after you emerge from that, you're going to emerge from it a better person. And you're going to say everyone should be doing that. And so, yeah, I'm just glad that you brought up backpacking as a metaphor because I feel like that's an excellent metaphor. So maybe we got to bring you on some California backpacking trips here at some point in time.
Ooh, I am so down for that, Matty. I work from home, bro. I'm in.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll hit you up offline about that. But dude, thank you so much, Romanin, for joining us. Again, everyone, there are going to be there's going to be some news dropping from San Diego Aftermath. It is going to be a California-based team again. They do have the pro spot that was up in the air. If you haven't had a chance to go listen to the interview they did with Marcelo and Tyler on the Play Game podcast, definitely go and do that with Mike Hinman. But this is not going to be the last Aftermath person that we have on this show in the next week, essentially. So, 2021 is already getting kind of interesting. You got Impact loading up. AC Dallas is going to have to completely reform. AC Diesel was legit at World Cup. Brandon, it's getting a little interesting. That's my last question for you before we let you go, is that knowing how crazy 2021 was, only 2 events, other than Aftermath, who's your dark horse in 2021? Who do you guys, let me put it this way. You're playing in the finals at the 4th event. Who is it going to be? It's got to be a dark horse though. Can't be a favorite. Don't give me Heat. Don't give me Impact. Don't give me San Antonio X Factor. Don't give me any of like the top 4, top 5. It's got to be like an outside team, a team that's like outside the top 5.
I'd say Revo. I got some good friends on that team, and I'm always been a fan of those guys. They're always coming in, like last year, 2019, for example, they were just coming on the up and up every tournament. I could see them really stepping in and putting in the work this year.
I like that. Speaking of Revo, Henry Sense will be on the show in the next couple weeks for sure. I've already been talking to him. So yeah, I like that call. I'm going to go with Infamous too. I think Infamous could make a run in 2021, but it's going to be a fun year to watch. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We do this for you. We do this for the subscribers and the paintball fans out there. Who knows what's going to happen, but again, more information going to be dropping here from the SD Aftermath camp in the next couple days. And then, 15th through the 17th, I believe, of January, we do have the Invitational coming at you from Florida. Anyway, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, thank you so much for sitting in. I hope you guys have a great new year. I'll see you guys next time.